3, 2, 1.
The Mueller investigation into Trump-Russia collusion is taking serious fire. The Democrats are on the ropes after their failed government shutdown, and the NFL makes a giant boo-boo leading up to the Super Bowl. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Well, we have tons to get to today, and tomorrow I will be speaking at University of Connecticut, where, of course, naturally, the administration has decided that I'm a threat to public safety, and they've decided that the general public will not be allowed to attend. It will be students only at University of Connecticut. This is the second school in a row they've done this, or Berkeley they did this, and now they're doing it at University of Connecticut as well, even though we likely would have had thousands of people who wanted to show up. It's getting very irritating for me. We'll discuss that a little bit later. The UConn, by the way, is actually acknowledging that I am not the one who promotes the violence. They are saying that they don't see me offending the audience. They don't see me coming there to tick off the audience. So at least they're acknowledging that, but it doesn't really change any of that. We'll get to all of that. We will also get to these bombshell text messages inside the FBI regarding the Mueller investigation, what comes next on the government shutdown in DACA. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at My Patriot Supply. So, just a couple of weeks ago, you remember, there was a false alarm in Hawaii when everyone in the state of Hawaii thought that they were going to be nuked into the ground by North Korea. And if that got you thinking, hey, what would happen if, God forbid, there were actually a disaster of that magnitude? First of all, it's important to note, just because, I'm not going to get graphic here, but just because a nuclear weapon would fall on your city does not necessarily mean that you will die. Right? The fact is that nuclear weapons actually do not look like Terminator 2. They don't wipe out entire cities. Instead, nuclear weapons affect a certain area. If you're living outside that area, however, you are going to still be living without food, without water, unless you go to My Patriot Supply. And this is not just true, obviously, in the unlikely event of a nuclear catastrophe. It's also true for natural disasters, which have been happening relatively frequently. And you see on the news all these people who don't have food and they don't have water. That's why you need to go to My Patriot Supply. They are the experts in self-reliance. Get their 102-serving survival food kit. It lasts up to 25 years in storage. For just $99, this emergency food ships free to your house. Call 888-803-1413, 888-803-1413, or go online to preparewithben.com. That's preparewithben.com to order a kit or two. The kits include healthy, flavorful food with a variety of breakfast, lunches, and dinners. People at the office have tried them. They say they taste like home cooking. It's 888-803-1413, 888 preparewithben.com. Sorry about that. Preparewithben.com. Okay, so we begin with today's big news, and that is these bombshell text messages that are now coming out from the FBI. So the FBI has turned over a bunch of text messages to the Senate Judiciary Committee and the House Judiciary Committee, and these text messages are not looking good for the FBI. So first off, Bob Goodlatte, who is a Republican from Virginia, and Devin Nunes, a Republican from California, as well as Trey Gowdy, a Republican of South Carolina, issued a statement on text messages they received regarding top FBI officials. They requested all of the backlogged text messages, and here's what they say, quote, "This weekend, we met to discuss the text messages and possible next steps in our oversight of these agencies. The context of these text messages between top FBI officials are extremely troubling in terms of when key decisions were made by the Department of Justice and the FBI, by whom these decisions were made, and the evident bias exhibited by those in charge of the investigation. The omission of text messages between December 2016 and May 2017, a critical gap encompassing the FBI's Russia investigation, is equally concerning. Rather than clearing up prior FBI and DOJ actions, these recently produced documents cause us to further question the credibility and objectivity of certain officials at the FBI." So, as we mentioned yesterday on the show, there are a couple of big stories that have come out of the FBI. The first is that there are these text messages that were sent between members of the FBI regarding the way the Mueller investigation was run. The second is that hundreds of text messages apparently have gone missing. Among thousands of text messages that have gone missing, hundreds between Lisa Page, who is working on the Mueller investigation, and her paramour, Peter Strzok, who is also working on the Mueller investigation, was a top counterintelligence guy. Yesterday, on Facebook Live, you should check it out on our Facebook page, we had the opportunity to talk with Representative Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, who's overseeing a lot of this stuff. He's on the Oversight Committee. And Representative Jordan was talking about the fact that they need a second independent counsel to investigate the first independent counsel because this investigation is compromised already. I did ask him a couple of the questions I've asked on the show. Why doesn't the President of the United States simply declassify the FISA warrant that was taken out against Carter Page so that we can find out whether indeed the FBI was using bad intel to target President Obama's and Hillary Clinton's political enemies? He suggested that perhaps Trump didn't want to politicize the issue. I find that unconvincing. Nonetheless, the fact is that there is the release the memo crew. Remember, there was a memo last week that we were talking about that supposedly lays out all of the flaws in FISA, supposedly lays out all of the problems with the FBI. This memo will be released to the public in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we are now hearing. So we'll have more information at that point. Meanwhile, according to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, this is reported over at Gateway Pundit, which is sometimes inaccurate, but here it is apparently accurate. They have 50,000 text messages that were exchanged between Peter Strzok and his mistress, Lisa Page. I don't think that statistic is correct. I think 50,000 text messages were missing. Some of those were from Strzok to Page. But Fox, well, here's what Fox News says. Let me get this right. I don't want to say something's not true. That's not true. It says more than 50,000 texts were exchanged between two FBI officials who have come under fire for exchanging anti-Trump text messages during the 2016 election, Attorney General Jeff Sessions revealed Monday. The figure surfaced as lawmakers have been pressing for answers after revelations that the FBI failed to preserve 5 months of text between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Jeff Sessions said, "We'll leave no stone unturned to confirm with certainty why these text messages are not now available to be produced, and we will use every technology available to determine whether the missing messages are recoverable from another source." I have to say, the number of documents that have gone missing, whether it's Hillary Clinton's email servers or whether it is the FBI suddenly losing tens of thousands of texts, pretty shocking stuff. The FBI servers included over 50,000 texts, and apparently the FBI system failed to retain text messages for approximately 5 months between December 14th, 2017 and May 17th, 2017. As I suggested, these dates are particularly suspicious because May 17th, 2017 is literally the date that Robert Mueller took over the investigation. And then, apparently, there's more. So John Ratcliffe, who's a Republican from Texas, he said after reviewing the text messages that he thinks there was a quote-unquote secret society of folks within the DOJ and FBI working against Trump. Here's what the Federalist reports. Quote, Trey Gowdy said the explanation for the missing text may be fishier than the official explanation. He says he saw Strzok and Page discussing getting rid of text in a printout of the messages he and other members of Congress received last week. Quote, lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in text that the world's premier agency somehow missed. Gowdy said, what Johnny and I saw today was a text about not keeping texts. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. Ratcliffe said, it is a strange coincidence. It is possible that these messages that were missing, perhaps it is a strange coincidence. And then Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, he went even further. He said in a radio interview on Tuesday with Jay Weber at WISN in Milwaukee, he read aloud a May 19th, 2017 text, right? So this would be 2 days after they suddenly magically recovered texts. In this text, apparently he wrote, quote, this is to Lisa Page, his mistress. You and I both know the odds are nothing about whether this investigation is going to turn up something. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there. He said he didn't actually want to join the Mueller investigation because he didn't think there was anything actually going on. Johnson said, I think that's kind of jaw-dropping. He said, in other words, Peter Strzok, who was the FBI Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Division, the man who had a plan to do something because he just couldn't abide Donald Trump being president, is saying that his gut sense is that there's no big there when it comes to the Mueller special counsel investigation. Now, I will say that it does seem like there's a conflict between this text and the implication that Strzok was basically ginning up a fake investigation in order to get Trump. Right? Suggests there was something else going on inside the FBI, but not the Trump collusion investigation, not the Mueller investigation. Because if indeed Strzok was texting his paramour, Lisa Page, and suggesting, hey, Lisa, there's nothing here, and I don't want to join the investigation about Trump-Russia collusion because I don't think there's anything there, then that does pose a different point of view than the suggestion that he was trying to craft out of whole cloth this narrative that Trump was colluding with Russia and then shove that down the throats of people over at the FBI. In other words, there's a lot of confusion going on here. They're certainly going to have Strzok testify. They're going to have Lisa Page testify. I do find it highly suspicious that the FBI is saying these messages just went missing. Now, again, if you are working for the government and messages just go missing, that is really suspicious. You're not allowed to delete government messages this way. I did get a note, by the way, from somebody who's an expert on cybersecurity who said that it's very unlikely these messages are gone forever. They said the FBI is required to conform to NIST SP 834, Contingency Planning Guide for Federal Information Systems, which requires multiple layers of redundancy and backup. These federal continuity and contingency guidelines are designed to assure that systems and data survive multiple natural disasters and 9/11 types of events. It is not possible for a singular glitch to cause the data to be lost. Right? That means that if the data were lost, then there'd have to be some sort of organized effort, is the suggestion here. So if that is indeed the case, then there's a lot more than meets the eye here. In any case, all of this is disturbing. All of it requires investigation. I'm not going to buy into the complete Republican narrative that this was all set up from the very beginning and that it was based on bad intel and that it was created out of whole cloth by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in order to get Donald Trump. I don't know that the evidence is there for that. I will say, however, that something smells fishy here with the missing texts and with the texts about a secret society and all of the rest of this. It's all confusing, and it requires a lot of explication. Okay, so in just a second, I want to talk about the fallout from the government shutdown that failed for Democrats. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Blue Apron. So everybody in the office is now using Blue Apron. The reason is, not only is it healthier, not only is it faster, you don't have to go over to a restaurant, not only is it more expensive, but it's also more fun. You get to cook with your family in your home. I mean, it's short rib burgers with a hoppy cheddar sauce on a pretzel bun, seared steaks and thyme pan sauce with mashed potatoes. You're cooking like a gourmet, and you don't even have to know how to cook, really. Right? Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. They offer 3 plans: the 2-person meal plan, meals that serve 2 people, and you choose from 8 new recipes per week with the choice to receive either 2 or 3 recipes any week. The family meal plan, these are meals that serve 4 people, and you can choose from 4 new recipes per week with the choice to receive either 2, 3, or 4 recipes in any given week. And then there's the wine plan as well, 6 bottles of wine from renowned winemakers delivered monthly. Blue Apron is treating my listeners right now to $30 off your first order if you visit blueapron.com/Shapiro, blueapron.com/Shapiro. You get $30 off your first order. And right now, for 8 weeks, they're teaming up with Whole30 to bring you delicious recipes. Their menu features 2 Whole30 approved recipes every week, like seared steaks and warm lemon salsa verde with roasted broccoli and sweet potato, chicken and kale orange salad with spicy tahini dressing. I mean, this stuff all sounds just magnificent. Again, they send the packs to your house, and if the ingredients are not good, then they will make it good for you. All right, it's blueapron.com/Shapiro, a better way to cook. And when you use that /Shapiro, again, you get $30 off your first order. $30 off your first order. It's a lot of variety, by the way. The menu changes every week based on what's in season. It's designed by their in-house culinary team. They offer 12 new recipes per week, and customers can pick 2, 3, or 4 based on what best fits their schedule. They're only sending non-GMO ingredients, meat with no added hormones. So, I mean, it's all great stuff. Again, blueapron.com/Shapiro. Use that /Shapiro and get $30 off with free shipping. I mean, I have pictures of the meals here, and they just look spectacular. So check it out, blueapron.com. Use that /Shapiro so they know that we sent you. Okay, so meanwhile, while there's all this fallout surrounding the Mueller investigation, there's also fallout surrounding the Democrats completely blowing it on the government shutdown. One of the things that is absolutely hilarious is Joy Reid over at MSNBC said that the government shutdown was actually not a loss for Democrats. She is incorrect. It is, in fact, a very large loss for Democrats. They got nothing in return and looked like cowards. They basically looked like brave Sir Robin ran away. They stood there and they said that they were going to fight to the end. The end lasted approximately 69 hours, and then out they were. They were done. So Chuck Schumer tried to pretend that he had won a big victory yesterday when he announced the end of the government shutdown. Needless to say, this was untrue.
The Republican leader and I have come to an arrangement. We will vote today to reopen the government, to continue negotiating a global agreement, with the commitment that, if an agreement isn't reached by February the 8th, the Senate will immediately proceed to consideration of legislation dealing with DACA.
Okay, well, only one problem. The White House has immediately announced that they are not going to push for any of the proposals that the Democrats would want here. So, for example, White House spokesperson Hogan Gidley, he said that Graham-Durbin, which is the bill that Schumer wants, this is the bill that would give about $2 billion for the border wall, but nothing else in exchange for keeping 800,000 Dreamers and their parents here. The White House spokesperson said that's not on the table. So while Chuck Schumer is saying we want a big victory here, the answer is no, they really didn't. This is clip 6.
Senator Graham and Senator Durbin were completely dishonest. When they brought the plan to the president, it did not do anything to address chain migration. In fact, it blew it up and made it bigger. It gave basically amnesty. Those two have been in lockstep on immigration for decades. They want open borders. They want amnesty. That's what Lindsey Graham is about. I'm from South Carolina. I've known the man for a long time. And it's fine. He can take that position. But to pretend he's anything other than someone who wants open borders and amnesty is just disingenuous.
So the White House is taking a very strong stance, at least publicly, on immigration, which means the Democrats gain nothing. They didn't even gain any sort of anything here in the bargain, right? Debbie Wasserman Schultz was asked about this, the former head of the DNC. She was asked by Breonna Keller on CNN, what exactly did you gain through all of this? And Debbie Wasserman Schultz had, nothing. There's literally nothing.
What one thing did he get, from Republicans to justify shutting down the government in the first place?
So the one thing I would say that he did get is the potential for momentum. Because if, and I'm certainly hopeful that then maybe we can be in a position to get the House and the President to come on board.
I'm still hung up, though, and I know Americans are listening, and they heard you say, and it's reverberating, potential for momentum, and they're thinking, potential for momentum, was that really worth shutting the government down for? The potential for something.
I will tell you that Republicans should be asking themselves that question because they shut the government down.
Okay, so you can't have it both ways. Either you shut the government down or they shut the government down. It's not that they shut the government down and we gain momentum by them shutting the government down. You shut the government down and then you admitted you shut the government down and Chuck Schumer admitted you shut the government down. I do love that this is like emanations from penumbras. In terms of meaningless phrases, potential for momentum is pretty spectacular. You know what has potential for momentum? This cup sitting right here. It has potential for momentum. But in order for it to have momentum, I actually have to generate some force into the cup, right? This is the thing about momentum. It has to be generated by a certain amount of force. Okay, initially. Momentum doesn't just happen. This is called inertia. Potential for momentum is literally any object. This microphone has potential for momentum if I would take it and throw it right now. Potential for momentum means nothing. Okay, it's literally a meaningless phrase. Potential for momentum. So this is what they gain. Other Democrats are ripping Chuck Schumer up and down. There is a gap that is opening wide inside the Democratic Party. It's kind of fascinating. It's reflective of the same gap that opened inside the Republican Party in 2013 after the government shut down there. There were a lot of people on the Republican side who said, you're not fighting Barack Obama hard enough. You need to shut down the government. You need to stop the funding of Obamacare because once it's in place, it's going to be very difficult for us ever to remove it. And there was a gap that opened up. This is really where I think a lot of the anger at Mitch McConnell started, was the feeling that he was not fighting hard enough on all of these particular matters. And what that led to was such discontent in the Republican Party that Donald Trump was able to waltz through the front door and simply take over the party. You're seeing the same thing in the Democratic Party. There's a fight now between the so-called establishment wing of the Democratic Party led by Chuck Schumer and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. All the people who want to run in 2020 are now basically doing what Ted Cruz did in 2013, right? Cruz wanted to run for president in 2016, and so he shut down the government. Now, I like Senator Cruz. I don't think that it was completely a political ploy by Cruz. I think that he felt he was doing what he had to do, but there's no question that he had his eye on the presidential race in 2016. The Democrats are doing the same thing now. Now they're all posturing by saying, we're the ones who really stood tough. Chuck Schumer didn't stand tough. All the people in the Senate who want to run for president are being very clear about what they want to do here. Chris Coons from Delaware, he basically was trying to encourage all these 2020 contenders. Guys, simmer down, shut up. Like, can we actually govern well here, or are you guys just going to run for president?
What appeals to our base for some primary several years from now is not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is how do we solve real problems. And my gut is that at the end of the day, that's what people are looking for in a next national leader as well. So for my colleagues who are hoping that they might be on the ticket in 2020, I don't think simply moving further and farther to the left is the best way to accomplish that. I think showing we can solve big problems is the way to encourage people to believe that Democrats belong in control of the Congress and back in the White House.
But this is what's so fascinating, is that the Democrats who want to win are now opposed to the Democrats who are radical, right? What we're seeing now is that the Democrats are moving farther and further to the left. This is what's amazing, is there have actually been studies on this. Basically, since 2010, Republicans have been stagnant. The Democratic Party, however, continues to move further and further to the left, and Trump has prompted them to move even further to the left, because their hatred of Trump means knee-jerk opposition to anything he does, including funding things like the Children's Health Insurance Program. By the way, funny to note, you remember when, like, 2 days ago, Jimmy Kimmel was complaining that the Republicans wouldn't fund CHIP? Oh, the Republicans are holding CHIP hostage. Oh, the Republicans won't fund the Children's Health Insurance Program. Oh, they're evil. Oh, they're terrible. The Republicans just funded CHIP for another 6 years. Did Jimmy Kimmel have anything to say about that last night on his show? No? No, there's a giant shock, because he's taking all of his cues from Chuck Schumer. But again, the gap in the Democratic Party is open and widening. Nancy Pelosi was trying to prevent it from widening still further. She came out yesterday and she said, I think that it was a mistake for us not to continue the government shutdown. But then she tried to spin this all as Trump's fault. They're going to try and go back to the well and use Trump as their unifying force.
What I think the main obstacle is, if I may, is this. There's a dark cloud hanging over the Capitol. And that dark cloud is the Trump tax scam. That took nearly $2 trillion and added it to the deficit when you take the cost and the interest on the debt. $2 trillion. So therefore, the impact on members on the Republican side voting for more domestic investments is diminished.
Oh, like Democrats care at all about deficits. Come on. When's the last time Democrats gave two damns about a deficit? That's ridiculous. But, she's trying to shift blame off of Schumer, as well she should. The only person who's honest about this that I saw, completely honest, was Luis Gutierrez, the Democrat from Illinois, who is very hardcore on immigration and who is perfectly willing to shut down the government over all of this because this is his lead issue. He says, listen, my Democratic colleagues, they blinked. They lost.
I think they caved. They blinked. Most of my Democrats are really good at articulating their values and how enthusiastically they support their values. Sometimes they're not as strong and enthusiastic as defending them in the legislative process.
So there we are. The Democrats, I think, are going to be slugging this one out for at least a little while to come. Yeah, if they win the House in 2018, then it is possible that all of this comes to an end. Victory tends to bring parties together. Loss tends to divide parties. This is obviously the case with the Democrats, who run literally zero branches of government at this point. One of the things that's been fascinating is that not only are Republicans gaining in the polls, but if you look at the way that the districts run, Democrats have a bit of an uphill run. A lot of the districts have become a lot more partisan and polarized, so Democrats would basically have to have a wave in order to take over the House. I've been suggesting for a while I think they probably will take over the House, but I don't think that it's going to be any surefire bet, especially the way that Democrats are blowing it. This government shutdown does not help them. It gives the impression that they're not competent, and the truth is they aren't. They decided to blackmail the Republicans. They put a gun to their own head and decided to blackmail the Republicans. It was the scene from Blazing Saddles where the black sheriff puts the gun to his own head and says, and they're trying to hang him, and he says, "Don't hang me." And he put the gun to his own head. He says, "Don't hang me or the bleep gets it." Right? And the town they go, no, don't do it. Don't do it. The Democrats thought that strategy was actually going to work here. That strategy obviously did not work here. They blinked, they looked bad, and now we're running up on February 8th. There's going to be another government shutdown, but Democrats have no leverage here. And that brings up the question as to what comes next, because the Republicans have basically said we're going to try and handle DACA before February 8th. That day is quickly approaching. It's already January 23rd, so that means that we're basically 2 weeks out. Well, we'll get to that in just a second. First, I want to say thanks to our sponsors over at FilterBuy. So the holidays might be over, but the winter is in full swing, and that means that you're spending a lot more time indoors. Well, according to studies, the air indoors contains up to 100 times more pollution than the air outside, which can cause illness, allergies, unnecessary wear and tear on your HVAC system, or even the premature replacement of the entire system if you don't replace your filters. That's why you need FilterBuy. They carry over 600 different filter sizes, including custom options, all shipped free within 24 hours. They're manufactured right here in the United States. We've used it at our house. It's the easiest thing in the world. You just go on their site and you choose which size you want. And not only that, they also offer an automatic program, so there's auto delivery. So every few months, they send you the air filters that you need, and you never have to think about it again. You never have to, when's the last time I changed the filter? I guess it must have been 2 years ago. That's not going to happen to you anymore. They offer a multitude of MERV options, all the way up to hospital grade. So you'll be removing dangerous pollen, mold, dust, other allergy-aggravating pollution while maximizing the efficiency of your system. And right now, you save 5% when you set up auto delivery, so you never need to think about those air filters again. It's filterbuy.com, filterbuy.com. Again, that's filterbuy.com. And you save 5% when you set up auto delivery, so you never need to think about those air filters again. Filterbuy.com, filterbuy.com. All right, so what comes next on DACA? That, of course, is the next step. The Democrats suggest that they have the potential for momentum, that they are finally going to be moving forward. And the answer is not so much, because as I mentioned, the White House is making clear that they don't want to cave to Democrats, and they honestly have no interest in caving to Democrats. Let's play this out. Let's say no deal gets done. We'll get to February 8th. The Democrats are not going to shut down the government again. So we'll get another funding bill. It won't include DACA. And then we'll get to March. And the Democrats, by the way, have no interest in actually saving Trump from having to back down. But Trump could easily just say, listen, we're not going to fix DACA, right? We're not going to be issuing any new DACA permits, but we're also not going to start deporting people, right? We're just going to let people stay here. We'll go after the criminal illegal aliens first. If he says that, then nothing really happens. See, the urgency here, this is the thing about all of this that makes no sense. The urgency here is a little bit overblown. Right? The president of the United States can just continue to waive DACA the same way that the former president of the United States has. Right? The fact that DACA is coming to an end on March 8th doesn't mean that mass deportations are about to happen. The deadline just means that they're not going to be issuing any more new papers for people who've been trying to get papers to stay in the country permanently. Sorry, March 5th is the date that they're looking at, actually. Right? So the idea that the world ends on March 5th unless they come to some sort of deal obviously is not true. Right? Right? Obviously, it's just not the case. So that means that there's not a lot of pressure on Trump to come to a deal, and there's not a lot of pressure on Democrats to come to the deal. Right? Here's what we know. Right? The March 5th deadline ends protections for young undocumented immigrants if Congress fails to do anything. But the Homeland Security Secretary is already saying that they're not going to do anything about this. Right? The White House is sort of making hints because they have to. Right? They're trying to push Democrats into making a deal. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that, maybe they'll start deporting Dreamers, probably not. She said, we haven't determined that. We're hopeful we don't have to do that, and we don't have to get there. We'd like Democrats to get serious about solving problems. The suggestion being that if we reach this deadline and nothing happens, then Trump could just say, you know what, a little more time for negotiation. I'm not going to deport people. That's the most likely outcome of all of this, right? Not that he starts mass deportations the way that Ann Coulter would like, but that he actually doesn't do any of that. So both sides have an interest in reaching a deal, but both sides also have an interest in not reaching a deal, which means that this will probably drag on beyond the deadline. Right? The idea of a quick deadline by February 8th is not going to happen. And the proof is in the pudding. Chuck Schumer is already taking off the table offers that he had already made. Right? So Chuck Schumer is taking his big spending boost for the border wall off the table. According to Politico, this happened in the last few minutes. The Senate Minority Leader, through an aide, informed the White House on Monday he was retracting the offer he made last week to give Trump well north of $1.6 billion in wall funding Trump had asked for this year, according to two Democrats. Now they say Trump will simply not get a better deal than that on his signature campaign promise. So Schumer offered a large increase in border wall spending as a condition for a broader deal to help Dreamers. After that offer was rebuffed, prompting the shutdown, the president has missed the opportunity to get the wall, said one Democratic aide. Now, Senator Jeff Flake had already considered using the promise of border wall funding totaling more than $1.6 billion in order to lure more conservative votes. A Dreamer plan written by a bipartisan group of 6 senators had included Trump's $1.6 billion request as part of a broader $2.7 billion border security package. But the White House had already rejected that deal. So basically, Schumer is withdrawing from a deal that the White House was never going to make. So the Democrats have no interest in coming to the table and offering anything. They would like to see mass deportations. Here's the dirty little secret. Democrats want Trump to do a mass deportation so they can get all the headlines about how mean and cruel Republicans are leading up into the midterms. And Republicans have no interest in surrendering on DACA because they want to get their base out for the midterms. So my prediction, no deal happens here. So all the talk about how, we have to reach a deal, it's not going to happen. Tim Kaine, senator from Virginia, former vice presidential candidate, he said, we all want a permanent fix, right? Everyone, Democrats, Republicans, we all want a permanent fix. They're lying. None of them do.
All of us in the room felt the same way. So we're sitting around in Susan's office again and again, and then we're dispatching and going talking to the leaders, and then coming back and doing the same thing, shuttle diplomacy. So we do have a strong degree of trust in each other that we want this outcome of opening the government and finding a permanent protection for Dreamers. Everybody in that room said we got to find permanent protection for Dreamers, and that's really important.
The idea that they're going to actually move forward with something, again, I find highly unlikely. They don't have the votes for it in the Senate. Democrats are saying to Trump, you can't just yell about what you want. But the truth is that they basically can't. Ari Melber at MSNBC was trying to pressure Trump. Obviously, this is not going to work.
Mr. President, here's the deal right now. You set a deadline for when you'd start deporting children unless Congress acted. Then you said you had a deal with Congress. Then you blew up that deal. If you make a deal and don't stick to it long enough to sign it, you will push people to find other ways to try to force your hand. And since this is a democracy, not a dictatorship or a scripted reality show, you won't always have the final say by yourself, even when you have the top job. You don't get to skip the hard part because you only run a co-equal branch of government, which of course was recently shut down. You can't just yell what you want or go home.
Well, actually, that's exactly what he can do, and he just did it, and the Democrats caved. So the fact is that's exactly what he will do. And again, I think the chances of reaching a deal here when Democrats are not bending at all is extraordinarily low. Right here is Senator Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. She said, listen, the funding for the wall is off the table. We're not going to do that. So he's saying, Melber is saying, Trump can't just shout what he wants and then go home. But that's exactly what Democrats are doing. Democrats are shouting what they want and then going home.
You almost interrupted me when I was talking about Senator Schumer giving the money for the wall to the president. Has that changed?
Oh, of course. The wall is no longer something that, Chuck Schumer was willing to put the wall on the table if we got a full DACA and full Dreamers, and that's not happening, so that's off the table.
What if there's an offer for DACA, but that has to go back on the table? Is the wall funding going to go back on the table at some point?
I think we're going to have a full-throated debate on DACA and possibly on a lot of other aspects of comprehensive immigration reform. And I know where I'm coming from, that we need to keep our focus on the urgency of taking care of the DACA dreamers and also comprehensive immigration reform that maintains family unity.
They're just going to muddle through this. Okay? They're just going to muddle through. Here's the reality. Republicans would like to make a deal on DACA. They would. They'd like to make a deal that also includes border security. Democrats don't want any deal that ends illegal immigration. They don't. They want another wave of illegal immigrants coming through. And that's because, for both humanitarian reasons and also because they believe that these are all future Democratic voters, they would like the border to remain open. Because this is a simple deal. When you ask the common American, just the normal American, what do you want on immigration? The normal American, by the polls, it shows that the vast majority of Americans would like to see some sort of legal status for the Dreamers. It also shows the vast majority of Americans would like to see an increased border security presence, as well as an end to the diversity visa lottery and chain migration. Right? There is a deal on the table. Democrats don't want that deal, so there will be no deal. I think that there's a good shot that Republicans should actually try and cut that deal themselves and just invoke the nuclear option if they have to in order to do it. Because otherwise, Democrats are going to continue using this as a club to beat Republicans with over and over and over again. This issue is not going to get resolved because no one has an interest in watching this issue get resolved, unfortunately, even though they're all lying about it to you. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the school-marming media as well as the NFL blowing itself up right before the Super Bowl in just the most foolish possible fashion. But for that, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, $9.99 a month. You get your subscription to Daily Wire. It means you get to be part of our show, watch the rest of it live, watch Michael Knowles' show live, watch Andrew Klavan's show live. You get to be part of our mailbag here on Fridays. It also means that when you get your annual subscription for $99 a year, you get this, the greatest in all beverage vessels, Leftist Tears, hot or cold mug. This thing has been filled to overflowing lately and is renewed every single day, apparently by Cory Booker specifically. So check out your Leftist Tears hot or cold tumbler when you get the annual subscription. If you want to listen later, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, subscribe to our channel over at YouTube as well. We have plenty of new videos coming out on a daily basis. Check all of that out. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation.